Hello everyone, welcome back to Fallout 4 as the part of the Vault Tech series. So today we are looking at Vault 81, which is quite an interesting one. So Vault 81 is here, so Diamond City is just there, the Chestnut Hillock Reservoir there, Hangman's Alley, Oberlin Station, so it's kind of almost directly south of Beantown Brewery. And just to the west of Diamond City and all that kind of stuff there. So this is where Vault 81 is. You can find the location a few ways. There's a couple of kind of random encounters and things that will give you the location if you don't stumble across it by yourself. But you can see we're quite near the city. And there's spotlights and things. So Vault 81 is an interesting one because it's an active functioning vault that is working exactly the way it was supposed to, or at least the way people were expecting all the vaults to work. That people are just existing and living their lives in the vault and everything is great. But the vault does have a bit of a secret.
Hope that pit boy belongs to you.
It does. Shush.
Calvin told me I want out so I can slack off. Maybe he's right. This work is just killing me.
Yeah, so there's just people wandering about, hanging around. There's Curie. Curie is a companion that you can find in here. That's the elevator. But yeah, so you can see that there's people, there's Vault Tech security, there's people in vault suits doing various jobs.
Not only did you save Austin, but I'm pretty sure lives would have been lost if we'd gone down there ourselves.
Yeah. So I've already completed the quest, so everybody's kind of talking about the outcome.
Can't believe we had mole rats in the walls.
Yeah, mole rats in the walls. Hello, Dr. Man. Yep, let's head downstairs in the elevator. We'll talk about Curie, but she basically is a Miss Nanny, which is like the kind of female sort of child rearing version of the Mr. Handy robots. But she was kind of reprogrammed to work on the medical science, and that was what the experiment was in this vault. So the original experiment, the idea was to develop a universal cure for every sickness that existed, using the residents of the vault as test subjects. However, the reason that this vault is absolutely fine and functional is because the original overseer, the first overseer, sabotaged the experiment, and then eventually it was kind of forgotten about, that there was a whole secret area of the vault where the scientists were, and everybody just kind of forgot about it until it was discovered. So let's head up to here. This is the overseer's office. And there's the overseer. That's the overseer. No, we're not going to do a Sandman kill. That's a bit drastic. But yeah, you can see it's all clean and everything looks nice. So the vault basically remained functional, and eventually in 2277 they had to open up the vault at that point, so that they could trade with the outside world, so they could get food and parts and things for their to maintain the vault and everything, but otherwise fairly functional. So we're gonna hack into this terminal, which I'm pretty sure the overseer doesn't mind me doing. Okay. There we go. So, supply requests. Maria Somerset fulfilled Mutefruit crates 3, Brahmin steaks 10, Stim packs 50, blood packs. Jacob Forsyth, that's the doctor. Priscilla Penske fulfilled fusion course 3, so that was probably us that did that they had a need. So when you come to Vault 81 and ask to be let in, they'll ask you to get 3 fusion cores for them, and then they'll let you in. So that's probably what that means. Maintenance requests. So 2nd floor atrium vent. Vent has been leaking, need to investigate shaft for integrity. May need to replace bad section, but hopefully can get by with a patch job. Not that exciting. Main level corridor. Pipes are suffering from corrosion, needs welding and sealing. Sections of flooring may need to be replaced. We'll need to take a closer look behind the scenes to investigate the extent of the damage. So they are starting to see some problems with the the pipes corroding and things like that. And entry, sealant must be given way for concrete bases. Water is building up among the wiring and the floor. Need to find a solution for resealing and water removal. So there are a few kind of maintenance issues that are cropping up in the vault. Then we've got the logs. So repairs. If one more thing in this vault breaks, I'm going to scream, and by scream I mean angrily slam the keys to this terminal as I enter in yet another frustrated log. No one told me when I took over for Overseer Bat that I was inheriting a sinking ship. From what Calvin tells me, the damage isn't even coming from us in our everyday lives. It's something external, and of course, since it's external, it's harder for him to assess the overall damage. We can't very well just unbury the vault. On the good side, the reactors continue to run without a hitch. 2 centuries, not a single incident that old Rusty couldn't handle. So while the walls around us crumble, at least we'll have good lighting to witness it. Yeah, so they're having issues with sort of water ingress and things like that that's coming from outside the vault. So interesting thing. And then the anti-Commonwealth. Once again, I overheard a citizen telling one of the traders how much we don't need them. What is wrong with these people? Holt, Miranda, don't they realise that without these traders we'd be starving? We wouldn't have half the items we need to get repairs done around here. I get the fear to allow outsiders in. I was terrified when we first opened the vault after 2 centuries of isolation. But you'd think after 10 years people would be more accepting and trust the faces we've grown to know so well. Some people still don't accept Horatio, and the man's lived with us for years now. And sure, I don't know what could happen in the future. Maybe it's just a matter of time before we allow the wrong person in, but it's a chance we have to take and a change they need to accept if we're going to survive for another generation. So you can see that some of the dwellers are not keen on people from the Commonwealth gaining access to the vault and things, and they don't trust it, which is understandable when the population's been isolated for such a long time. But what she's saying obviously is that without opening the vault and trading with the outside world for parts and for food, that the vault wouldn't have survived. So that's a kind of double-edged sword. Then Bobby DeLuca. So how hard can it be to catch Bobby DeLuca doing drugs? The vault is only so big, there's only so many places he can hide. And yet here I am getting another complaint about his little habit. It's frustrating on so many levels. Everyone's working hard, almost round the clock, and here's Bobby. He sleeps on the job, a job that he can't even do, by the way. He gets old Rusty to do everything. If he's not high, he's drunk. His sister backs up every story he comes up with. The list goes on. Part of me just wants to lock him up, post a guard and be done with it, let him suffer through the withdrawal as his punishment. We all know he deserves it. So this is kind of how the secret part of Vault 81 was discovered. Bobby has a problem with chems, and he's using chems a lot, but nobody can find and can catch him in the act in order for the security team to do anything about it. And the reason for that is because he's discovered one of the doorways into the secret part of the vault, and that's where he's been hiding his chems, and that's where he's been going. But then Austin, who's the kid of the hydroponic scientist lady, or he's like the grandson of her, sees him opening the door, and he goes in to the secret part of the vault, and that's how he ends up in the situation he does that kicks off the quest, A Hole in the Wall. So Priscilla, that's Austin's grandmother, informed me that she lost the latest carrot crop. I wish we had the space to do more consistent rotations. On the bright side, while we'll miss the carrots now, we'll be even happier once they're back. I'll never forget the day when Maria made her first Brahmin meat pie. I thought I was in heaven and that I'd never eat another steak in a box again. Against Dr. Forsyth's wishes, I might add. Wasn't long before I'd had my fill and found myself enjoying that same old Salisbury steak. On the bright side, Maria's meat fruit pies are consistently good, although it's hard to go wrong when it comes to dessert. It helps that she likes to save them for special occasions. Probably smart on her part. She's been our chef long enough to know how easily her taste buds give out on us. So, talking about how some of the food that's coming in from the outside is really, really good. So, that gives us a good indication of kind of the state of the vault at the moment, you know, and where it is in this kind of modern era, and about Bobby DeLuca. So he is the one that basically led to Austin going into the secret part of the vault.
And see Horatio while you're here. I imagine you come across many barbers in the Commonwealth.
He became sick from that, which is kind of a shame. So yeah, you've got nice clean beds. This place is looking a wee bit less clean. Bobblehead stand. I think this is my room actually. Yeah. Yeah, so if you complete the quest and save the kid, then you get a room in the vault for yourself, which is quite nice. And they're also a bit more lax about you taking things. So let's head down here. So the cafeteria.
Austin sure recovered fast, thanks to you.
Barber. So yeah, you can go and get your hair done. There's lots of fresh veg in the cafeteria. And shiny toasters. Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
It's that bathroom. I don't think we really need anything in the bathroom.
I heard Austin's making a quick recovery.
Yeah. Hydroponics. So yeah, this is where Priscilla Penske works. So she's got all sorts of crops growing. Let's have a look at the terminal. So test group A14-1, week 1. Week 1 examination. Germination was fast, seeds have sprouted and are healthy, radicals and hypocotyls appear strong, initial examination of cells appears normal, items of note A14-1.5 and A14-1.9 both display 3 cotyledons. A14-1.2 is displaying a purple striped pattern. So I don't know if it might be related to carrots, because you do get purple carrots. That is a thing that exists. Seedlings continue to grow normally and will be ready for transplant. Roots appear healthy and are steadily growing. A14-1.5 and 1.9, despite their differences, are thriving well alongside the others. A14-1.2 has died. Dissection reveals little to differentiate it from the others. The discoloration does not appear to be infection or parasite related. And then week 3, all seedlings have been successfully transplanted. Growth appears healthy. Water intake is normal. And then B02-3, week 1. Germination has been slow. Only 50% of the seeds have sprouted. The radicle is barely showing. I have my doubts on the other half. This group does have a higher chance of failure due to radiation exposure. Initial 50% of seeds initially sprouting have continued to show signs of growth. In addition, 25% have also started to sprout. I will continue to observe the remainder. I lost B02, 302, 305, 306 and 308 to overwatering. These seedlings utilise far less water than previous hybrids, a potential benefit, but need to monitor them closely for proper hydration. In week 3, transplanted all these ones. The others have not formed a strong enough root to safely move. No further seeds have sprouted since week 2, so there's a batch that's not doing quite so well. So she's studying the effect of radiation and hybridization on all these crops and things, because that's just something that is part and parcel of the agriculture game. When people talk about GMOs and all that kind of stuff, one thing that's important to know is that it's something that humanity's been doing for hundreds of years before we even knew what DNA was, by crossbreeding different species together and creating different breeds of everything from corn and wheat to cattle. The fact that, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower are all the same basic plant, and then we've just kind of created different versions. So something that's just worth noting. That's just how these things work. What we've got a flag here in the classroom. There is a fun little kind of side quest. You can come in here and tell stories about your adventures to the kids when they're in class. Right, another terminal to have a look at. So Gwen McNamara, who's the overseer. General health, excellent. Health history, childhood bronchitis resulted in susceptibility to respiratory infections, prescribed steroidal anti-inflammatory inhaler for emergency use. So yeah, fairly standard. Anyone that's had sort of bronchitis or asthma or anything like that, then using a steroid anti-inflammatory inhaler is quite common treatment, so nothing scandalous there. Mark Somerset, general health poor. Health history is survived 2 bouts of pneumonia. Prognosis of surviving another is doubtful. Suffers from ulcers, kidney disease. What? I'm guessing that's like ulcers and kidney disease. That's kind of, I feel like there's some words missing there. Anyway. And Dr. Priscilla Penske, which is Austin's grandmother. General health good. Beginning to show signs of arthritis. Has a family history of dementia but shows no signs of it. Generally refuses even mild treatments. So yeah, she's quite healthy, but watching out for signs of dementia. And then Robert DeLuca. General health is poor. Multiple addictions to chems. Got clean once for 2 months before relapsing. Shows signs of cardiac weakness and memory loss. So again, that's common symptoms for somebody that has addiction problems, and certain things do weaken the heart, and can affect memory and things as well. So nothing overly surprising. It's not really the most scandalous thing that the overseers get a history of bronchitis and maybe needs an inhaler occasionally. So that's Tina DeLuca, so that's Bobby DeLuca's sister, and there's old Rusty, who's the maintenance robot. He's, name suits him, but he gets on with things.
I heard what you did for Austin. You saved that kid's life, so...
What the hell? Don't walk away when I'm talking to you.
Okay, Jesus.
Tina, are you gonna hear me out or what?
Fine. Okay.
You're right. He needs help.
Yeah.
We've got to convince him to go see Rachel. She's got some treatment drug that'll help him get clean.
Okay.
It's either get clean or get dead at this point, and that bastard better get his priorities straight.
Yeah. I'm not here to do quests, Tina, but fine. It's the first time I've ever seen a character do that and yell at you for walking away from them. Intriguing. Right. I'm trying to remember what's up here. Nothing. Yep, old Rusty at the maintenance spot, so...
If you want to talk to Rachel, she's in the medical center.
I'll get to Rachel eventually. I forgot to include this in the recording, but there's actually a note that you can find next to this terminal, which is the technician's note, and it says nobody can get into Overseer Olivet's terminal. The password might be corrupted. I can't make sense of this thing, and I finally convinced the Overseer to let it go and allow me to set up a new terminal. Olivet probably was hardly even using the thing anymore. I doubt there's anything important on it. So that was probably her way of hiding the fact that there was a secret part to the vault and keeping everything under wraps. So that's why the terminal's master locked and really difficult to get into. But this is the terminal that we really wanted, which is the original Overseer's terminal. So nobody will have read it because it's got master locked password, and after long enough people just really forgot. Okay. There we go. Yep, so violation, Vault-Tec protocol, blah de blah de blah. By using this terminal, you acknowledging that you're an authorised user or technician. Unauthorised users must cease reading and log out of this terminal immediately. Violators will be subject to civil and criminal penalties. So this is the original Vault Overseer's terminal. So welcome to Vault 81. Overseer Olivet, we'd like to thank you for accepting your new role as Overseer of Vault 81. This programme, as you know, represents a critical research opportunity. The work we do together will lead to a better future for humanity, not only in these times of uncertainty, but far into the future, whatever it holds. Your background in academic and applied medical research will make you a capable leader to Vault 81 science staff, and your administrative background gives you the unique ability to lead and manage the general population as well. Thank you again for reconsidering this offer of employment, and good luck, Vault-Tec Human Resources. So, it's the welcome. Prime Directive. The mission of Vault 81 is to research infectious diseases. I think there's supposed to be an apostrophe, or I don't think there's supposed to be a space there. And antibodies, with particular attention paid to potential mutations in a climate of heavy radiation. Clinical trials are a vital part of Vault 81's mission. Trials will be performed in 3 stages. Stage 1 trials are to be conducted in petri dish cultures, which is what's known as in vitro. Stage 2 trials are to be performed on the colony of Heterocephalus glaber specimens. That H should be capitalised. I'm proofreading this. Which is mole rats. That's the scientific name for the mole rats, furnished by Vault-Tec. Stage 3 trials may be performed on the residential population of Vault 81. So that was the idea, is that when they were trying, treatments for infectious diseases, the first stage would be in vitro, so it would be in cell cultures, or cultures of bacteria or fungi or whatever, which is what in vitro means. Stage 2 is in vivo, i.e. in the body, in a living thing, on mole rats. Presumably they couldn't get guinea pigs, which would normally be the kind of rodent of choice, but they were basically given a colony of mole rats to test on. And then stage 3 in vivo is the human trials. So scientific staff will be restricted to the hermetically sealed research area. This measure reduces the chance of cross-contamination between residential and scientific staff populations. So hermetically sealing meaning that nothing can get through, not even air, so that you can keep the viruses and things out. The Overseer will have communication capabilities, but no other members of the residential population are to be made aware of the Prime Directive. So again, usual Vault-Tec nonsense is that we're going to use these people that have paid us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars as test subjects without their knowledge. So that is the actual goal, and then the admission protocol. As outlined in the Vault-Tec Operations Handbook, all staff members of Vault 81 will be required to participate in mandatory drills held on site at the discretion of the Overseer and Vault-Tec administration. Admission drills are a requirement on all beta alert days as indicated by the Vault-Tec early warning system. In the event of an actual alpha alert, Vault 81 residents will be admitted into the vault by Overseer staff. All scientific staff should report to their workstations immediately, avoiding contact with the general population, especially those whom they may know personally. If necessary, Overseer should remind staff of their confidentiality status. All residents should be admitted in an orderly fashion and given the approved welcome address in the common area atrium by the Overseer. The Overseer should then use this terminal to confer privately with the head of science staff, by now safely sealed in the research area. So that was the plan. And then evacuation protocol. So Vault 81 is not to be evacuated under any circumstances except a direct all-clear command from Vault-Tec Central HQ. We've seen that before. Research reports should be archived on the primary mainframe. Chemical compounds and other physical materials may be deposited in the marked receptacle only by the Overseer and only after a successful Stage 3 trial phase. In the event of a Vault-Tec ordered evacuation, Overseer must be prepared to dispose of the residential population by incineration. Propellant nozzles are pre-installed in all residential living quarters to avoid contamination with outside population. This disposal is at the discretion of the Overseer unless specifically mandated as part of the Vault-Tec evacuation orders. So if Vault-Tec were to send a message to say, open the vault, get everybody out, that only applies to the science team. The residents were to be incinerated because they would have been exposed to infectious diseases and things. So pretty harsh. And then Overseer's private log. So this is where we get into the good stuff. So this is the original Overseer's journal entries basically. So a job's a job. I can't believe it. Vault-Tec must have really been desperate for an Overseer candidate after Duncan fell ill. I'm certainly qualified for this job, but with my politics, how could they think I'm a good candidate for this kind of programme? Maybe there's more to this than I'm seeing. They still haven't given me a full briefing on the work we'll be doing here, but I'm not stupid. I'm pretty sure it's going to involve human trials. I won't jump to any conclusions though. Let's just see how this plays out. If they're crossing any ethical lines with me, they'll be in a congressional hearing before they know what's hit them. So she's like, oh, they must have been desperate to hire me because of my political views not aligning with Vault-Tec. So interesting. And she's like, yeah, if they cross the line on ethics, she's going to take them to the cleaners. Drills, drills, drills. These researchers are willing to put up with a lot. Today is our 5th drill of the week, and this time I had to make the calls in the middle of the night. Half of these scientists are just kids between cramming for finals and sleeping off Friday hangovers. I'm shocked as many of them staggered in as did. I guess the pay is worth it. I know I wasn't earning that kind of money as a grad student. So yeah, it seems like some of them, the kind of science team were still students essentially in some fashion. What to do? It's much worse than I thought. I was finally given my full briefing today. Not only is Vault-Tec asking us to do clinical trials on humans, they've got some serious backers in government. I can't just blow the whistle on this. I've seen the admission roster. There are good people planning to live in Vault 81. And I have little doubt the vaults will come into use eventually. I won't reward the trust of these people by treating them like guinea pigs. I feel trapped. I don't know what to do. So despite all of her kind of comments about if she finds out that ethically questionable things are going to be happening, she's going to blow the whistle. She's realised that, you know, the government are really backing Vault-Tec on this, and they're you know, they're funding it and they're involved, so whistleblowing is not going to end up going her way. So but at the same time, she doesn't want to force these people to be used as test subjects, so she's kind of concerned about what she's going to do. And then the day it's done, I got the call early this morning, another beta drill. It's always Rosario who has to call. Her voice was trembling and she couldn't get off the phone soon enough. She knew. Sure enough, the warning was upgraded within a few hours, and the news was reporting confirmed launches soon after that. I made the decision. I deliberately sabotaged the phone list. Such a simple thing, but it meant that none of the science staff received a notification about the drill. The residents are beginning to show up, and we'll have our hands busy admitting everyone. So that was the first kind of sabotage that the original overseer did, was that she decided to sabotage the list of people to be phoned, which meant that the science staff didn't get a notification about the drill that obviously turned into the real thing, because this is the 23rd of October. This is the day that the bombs fell, and she noticed that the woman that phoned her sounded different, and she was trying to get off the phone really quickly, so she knew. We know that Vault-Tec got an early kind of heads up about the bombs, really. So yeah, we see hints of that when you're talking to the rep at the beginning of the game as well, and he's just like, yeah, just look at that sky out there, and time is of the utmost importance. So Vault-Tec knew. Science staff. I'm no criminal mastermind. Clearing the phone list prevented most of the science staff from showing up, but 3 still made it in. Flint and Collins are both my age and live in the Fens. They had time to get here with the general population. Burrow was just an overachiever and came by in the morning just to see if there would be a drill today. Figures. They've reported to the research area. The vault protocols gauged automatically and sealed them in. They're already busy with their work, especially since there are only 3 of them. So, despite her sabotage, 3 scientists still showed up, so they've been sealed away, they suspect. Burrow and Flint are getting restless in there. Collins and that robot, he's calling her Curie now, are keeping the mood relatively steady, but I think they already suspect that I have no intention of allowing them to implement a stage 3 trial. I'm not sure what to do. They've got access to the delivery nozzles. If they choose to, they'll be able to infect the population with whatever they want. Need to keep them calm. So she's kind of aware that the scientists, the men that are sealed away in the secret part of the vault, are kind of suspecting that she's not 100% on board with things. And then forgiveness. I've made a grim choice. I sabotaged the delivery nozzles in all the resident quarters as soon as I was able. I didn't expect Burrow to notice so soon. Hell, I didn't expect Collins to get so close to a phase 3 trial so quickly. I didn't expect half of what's happened in the past few months. Cutting off communication is a cowardly thing to do, but what options do I have? They'll have food and water in there as long as they need. I just can't let them go through with human trials for the God knows what Vault-Tec plans to do with the research. I only hope that somehow they can forgive me and live out their years in peace over there. So that was when she made the decision, this isn't happening. I'm not letting these scientists push infections into the population in the vault. So she sabotaged the ability for them to do that and to put infectious agents into the vault, and then she cut off communication with the scientists. She knew that they would have what they needed to survive and live out their kind of natural lifespans. So yeah, it was a difficult situation, and obviously she clearly had some ethical issues, and we'll see a bit of that here in the research communication records. Yeah, so testing 1, 2, 3. Testing, Dr. Olivet, do you copy? I do, Kenneth. Everything good over there? Just another drill day, right? It is, and thank God for that. So that's them obviously testing the communication link. Where is everyone? Kenneth Collins, Overseer, there are just 3 of us over here. What's going on? Olivet, are you getting this? Sorry, Kevin. Oh, it's not Kevin. Kenneth. Sorry, Kevin, it's been a madhouse on this side. Only 3. Myself, Jim Flint, and that kid Burrow. Where is everyone else? Not over here. Residents are being admitted. They started showing up in droves once the news started broadcasting. That's the same way I heard. you'd think Vault-Tec would have enough warning to call at least a beta drill for the staff this morning. Something must have gone wrong. So she's lying through her keyboard, I guess, because he's questioning, like, why is there only 3 scientists here? What happened? Then phase one trial. We've been pretty limited down here, but we've been focused on antibiotics and have our first Petri trials underway. I saw the data last night. It's promising, but do you think it's ready? The trials just started and the virus we're going after has a few days of inoculation, but I'm optimistic that later this week we'll see positive results. Okay, keep me posted and don't begin phase 2 trials until I have an opportunity to go through the new data. Of course, have a good afternoon, Overseer. I have to say, as a medical professional, I raised some questions that we're using antibiotics on viruses. That's not what antibiotics do. It's a common misconception that taking antibiotics will help with a viral infection. A lot of people will demand it when they've got a cold or the flu, but antibiotics work on bacteria, not viruses. So, yeah, questionable, but here we are. Then food extruder issue. Overseer, do you have a minute? This system isn't instantaneous, Burrow. I hope you haven't been waiting for a reply all morning. Sorry, Overseer, I wanted to notify you about an issue with our food extruder. Oh, okay, I see it now. It looks like a clog in the protein tank. You weren't able to address it on your end. No, Overseer, hardware failures on the residential side must be addressed over there. We can't get to the tanks or nozzles to repair them. Okay, Burrow, I'll have maintenance down there immediately. Stand by and have Collins contact me if there's still issues in about 10 minutes. Thank you, Overseer. I'll go there now. So, yeah, she still had kind of the ability to deal with their food extruder, which is what they use, I think, to basically keep producing food. And then phase 2 trial. Good news, Dr. Olivet. We've tweaked our formula based on phase 1 trial results, and I think we're ready to go with phase 2. How's the mole rat population doing? Very well. The specimens Vault-Tec provided are remarkably hardy. Flint has been doing some radiation testing on them. Is that in the protocols? Not technically, but we noticed some weird stuff with the kibble provided for them. Burrow got pretty sick for a day or two, don't ask. Guessing they tried to eat their food. Flint's been looking into it. These suckers are big to begin with, and we're thinking it's genetic. Tampered with? Something like that. I think Vault-Tec must have been running some experiments with them. They're all unusually large. Rodents of unusual size. A few demonstrate bioluminescence. At least one appears more intelligent than normal. Do you still think they're a useful control? We've divided the colonies, separated the most unusual specimens, and put the control colony on a new diet taken from our own food supply. It's not ideal, but I think we're okay. Very well. Give me the evening to go over your data again, but I think you're clear to begin phase 2 unless I find anything I don't expect. So yeah, they're talking about the mole rats being really big and some of them glowing, and that maybe Vault-Tec have been doing things. So it's possible that these mole rats have been exposed to radiation already. Possibly they've been exposed to FEV. I mean, if they're using them for testing infectious diseases and infective agents, FEV is a big one, and we know that Vault-Tec do experiments with FEV, as evidenced by Vault 87, as evidenced by you know, what the Master found as well, and the West Coast delivery mechanism failure. Overseer? Yes, Burrow, what is it? I've noticed an issue with our delivery mechanisms. Do you know if anyone has tampered with the nozzles in the residential quarters on your side? I don't know. What are you doing with the delivery system? Anyway, the phase 2 trial just began. I know, Overseer, I just thought it would be a good idea to run tests on the delivery system before we reach phase 3. If we reach phase 3, human trials are not to be undertaken lightly. What kind of tests were you hoping to run anyway? Just a placebo vapour to make sure the nozzles are dispensing mist properly. The residents wouldn't even know we'd done anything. I guess that's the idea, though. And she's like, I'll look into the nozzle issue on my end. In the meantime, please don't use it without her direct approval. So yeah, she's kind of concerned that he discovered that she'd sabotaged the nozzle so quickly, because she's like, well, what are you trying to do? We're not supposed to be doing human testing yet. And he says, oh, it's just going to be a placebo. And for those who don't know what placebo means, essentially it's an innocuous, so a replacement for something that doesn't have any effect. So when you do sort of blind placebo controlled studies, when you're testing medication, for example, you'll have your test subjects and you'll split them up, and half will get the real drug and half will get a placebo, which is basically nothing. It's harmless. It's not going to have any effect at all. So like a sugar tablet or water or something, something that's not going to do any direct harm or have any effect at all. Because they talk about the placebo effect, which is where it's a kind of theory about belief that, you could give someone a placebo and tell them it's an effective treatment for their illness, and that their symptoms would improve even though the treatment that they got doesn't actually do anything at all. And it is something that's often used for medication studies in clinical trials and new drugs that are in development, because the placebo effect means that you can tell whether the medication is actually having a direct impact, or if you get the same results in the placebo group versus the actual drug group, then it's probably that the drug's not actually having the desired effect and things like that. So that's kind of what that means. But whether he actually intended to use a placebo or not, we don't really know. And then there's one final message. Please answer. Doctor, please get in touch. I know what you've done. Honestly, I don't blame you. Performing the phase 3 trial on non-consenting humans is a breach of ethics, at least according to the world we used to live in. I can keep Burrow together for a while, but Flint's already suspicious. What are we supposed to do over here? I can only lie to them for so long without some actual response from you. Damn it, Olivet, you can't be such a hypocrite that you'd condemn us to die in the name of your personal sense of morality. I know your politics, but I never thought you'd actually leave men for dead. Please reconsider this. So obviously the concern that they have, the science team, is that it's all men. It's only 3 men that got in. There's no women, so there's no possibility of them maintaining a population of scientists in any kind of fashion, because it's 3 men and they can't, and they're cut off. And then when she stops communicating with them, and obviously she must have locked out her terminal and everything, there's nothing that they could do about it. So next thing we're going to be doing is heading into the secret Vault 81. There we go. So yeah, you can see that this section of the vault's in much worse shape, presumably from the mole rats. So when you come here the first time, you will get jumped by mole rats pretty much constantly. And that's kind of the whole issue with the quest that brings you here, because obviously Austin, the kid, gets bitten when he comes in here, but when you come here, it's almost inevitable that you'll end up contracting the mole rat disease. You can avoid it if you manage to kill all the mole rats before they get close to you. But even if they bite a companion, you get sick. So you can actually see the little pill icon in the bottom corner. So if I look at the effects, so mole rat disease, max HP minus 10. So it's not really a big deal to me. Like you'd lose 10 HP from your max health. I think the idea being that you have been out and about in the wasteland and things. You probably had vaccines before the bombs, and you've been out and exposed to all sorts of things, whereas Austin, the kid who's in the vault, probably hasn't been. So his body and his immune system isn't really up to the task of fighting off that kind of infection. So that's why he ends up really sick. And when you get to Curie, she has a cure-all that cures every infectious disease known to man, but because she's been stuck waiting for somebody to let her out for so long, she's only got one viable dose left. And then you have to then decide, do you give it to Austin and save the kid's life, or do you keep it for yourself? And if you keep it for yourself, then the kid dies. So it's one instance where you are actually able to be responsible for the death of a child. And unsurprisingly, the residents of Vault 81 don't like that. And they're not happy with you, but it's obviously set up in a way that if you decide to do the altruistic thing and the nice thing and save the kid, then you're not punished too severely for it. So yeah, bit of an interesting one there. But that's kind of the way the quest goes, that you end up investigating this vault. But when you come down here, the mole rats they're pretty relentless, and especially because they have that way of just popping up out of the ground, it's almost inevitable that you're going to end up with the mole rat disease at some point. So it's very hard to avoid getting it. So public terminal breeding program update. Mole rat breeders. We finally got the breeding program stabilised. As earlier reports indicated, the mole rats show unusual degrees of aggression in captivity. This may be due to the growth hormones. Recent generations seem more docile, although some of the keepers are complaining that the lab animals are watching them, which is preposterous. Interesting. Serum production. We've created 197 distinct serums that can treat 36% of known viruses. This is a modest improvement from last year's 33% treatment rate. However, 11 of the serums account for 61% of the treatment results, which is encouraging. At this time, only 19% of serums have the potential to be mass-produced. We have tasked our latest robot lab assistant to find ways to synthesise more of them efficiently. So this is them reporting on progress with kind of antiviral treatments, presumably from the mole rats. Yep. Oh, there's one of the mole rats that's stuck in the ground. So yeah, so these ones they are kind of unique. Then they're listed as Vault 81 lab mole rats. They're the ones that can give you the disease. You do find sometimes the brood mothers and the glowing mole rats as well, which can't give you the disease. Apparently it's only these specific ones, but it's really hard to avoid it. Yeah, really hard to avoid getting it. And then there's just surgical trays everywhere. Hydroponics observation terminal. So I think the idea is that through that dirty window is supposed to be the hydroponics. So it's like a two-way mirror kind of a thing. So hydroponics observation station. The crop rotation implemented by the hydroponics manager has proven successful for supplying the vault with adequate food. We have not had to intervene, which has eliminated the risk that vault inhabitants would discover the secret part of the vault. So far, they do not appear to suspect the true nature of their vault. The greenhouse would be a perfect place to introduce class C4 and D1 viruses into the population, as well as potential cures. Should the disease get too virulent, I'm recommending installing hidden sprayers in the ceiling. So possibly this was before the vault actually became activated. Oh, get there. So it's kind of a one-way maze, really, that you kind of have to work your way through and then into the research section. So here's another the depot. So that's the kind of shop where you can buy stuff. So observation station. It rhymes. The vault inhabitants have unexpectedly repurposed this room to be a kind of store for selling and repairing their possessions. It has allowed this observation port to record interactions between many of the vault citizens. This shop will become an important disease vector for spreading airborne Class B2 viruses. It will also be valuable for observing the effects of disease on social and economic relationships. This room will become a backup treatment location along with the commissary. The primary will still be the clinic under assumption that severely ill patients will all be taken there. So yeah, it makes sense that the primary place for administering treatment would be the clinic. A toy truck and some yucca cherries. And then overseer observation. So this would be the actual overseer's office. Although the chief scientist argued against an observation port in the overseer's office, it has turned out to be a boon. We're able to observe the political shifts in governance since the vault door was locked. When we do introduce viruses to the population, we will be able to monitor the leadership's reactions and courses of action. So they were kind of debating about whether to put an observation window in for the overseer's office, and then they decided to do it. And then yeah, so you can see there's puddles of water and things. So this was probably the issue that maintenance was having, was that there was water ingress in the kind of space that the vault was built into. So this has all kind of started to flood, and you know, the kind of soil and the stone and everything's subsiding as well. We've got a whole kind of maintenance section here. Cages with dog bowls, so presumably this is where they were keeping all the mole rats. Bit more space for storage, but we do have a working terminal. Yeah, guessing this was a lab of some kind. Okay, so that's everything that we read. So even if you don't have the master hacking ability, you can still get the communications between the overseer and the science team from this side. I think it's only really the kind of directive and stuff from Vault-Tec that you can't get without getting into that terminal, if I remember rightly. But yeah, so come head up here. So this is the end of the road, so this is where Curie was, and she was locked in, so you need to tell her that you're from Vault-Tec so that she can come out and hand over the cure. But here these lockers have all got... Oh, that one doesn't. That one has a vase in it. There's lab coat and glasses, but this one's full of bones, and this one is also full of a full human skeleton, basically. And flowers and candles and a microscope. So this is where the three scientists that got sealed in here ended up. So two of them were buried in these lockers, and then one has an empty vase, so presumably he was cremated. But yeah, so this is what happened, and we'll find out exactly what happened from this terminal here, which is Curie's terminal. And there is like a kind of... That's her terminal there, Curie's terminal, and then there's this one here. So you managed to figure out how chairs work, well done. So Vault 81 mission statement. So from Vault-Tec Board of Directors to Chief Scientist, Vault 81 Medical Lab Partition. We are entrusting you with a mission that is critical to all humanity. Vault 81 will be used to wipe out disease as we know it in the human race, which is a very ambitious goal, in my opinion. Your partition of the vault has been equipped with state-of-the-art medical research equipment, including the new contagious vulnerability robotic infirmary engineer, aka Curie. There is a century's worth of biological and chemical supplies. There are the genetically adapted mole rats. Genetically adapted, so I'm guessing FEV was involved in that. And most important, a vault full of test subjects. As with all great progress, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. You'll be infecting the people of the vault with diseases in an attempt to have them develop antibodies. Some may not survive, but you must ensure that a breeding population is always maintained. It will take many generations, but with proper procedures, you should be able to develop a disease-resistant group of humans. Your work will be the work of generations. Each generation of scientists must select a chief scientist. Curie will then make sure that each reads this mission statement to keep the vault focused over the centuries. So that was the idea, that Curie would, she would obviously keep going even when the scientist died, and that the work would continue. So a bit different from what the overseer was told, but instead of, using artificial means of creating antibodies or creating disease cures, that they wanted a population that were resistant to diseases that had inherent antibodies, which is an odd thing because of the way antibodies work. So the thing about it is that in humans, certainly, antibodies don't really cross the placenta fully. Sometimes they do to some extent, but newborn babies get their antibodies from the milk more than anything else, and they'll get some across the placenta as well, which is what's known as maternal antibodies, and they fade away, after which point the body's own immune system has to develop the antibodies against various diseases. And that's one of the reasons that vaccinations are so effective, because they can essentially expose the immune system to diseases in a safer way, so that the disease itself isn't caused, but it's enough to train the immune system to recognise these diseases, so that when you do encounter them, the body's already prepared. It's kind of like the most wanted list of criminals or something. That's the way I've always kind of thought about it, is saying, look, if you see this guy, call in the T cells, or instead of calling in the police. That's how immunity actually works, and it's something that a lot of people have decided that they're experts on, even though they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. But that's how vaccines work, is basically kind of printing a list of these are all the dangerous guys, look out for them. If you see them, phone the police, or alert the immune system. And that's what so it means that when that virus or whatever's encountered in the body, the antibodies are already there, and that prevents it from causing disease. It's a whole thing. But yeah, I say everybody seems to be an expert on immunology these days, which is interesting. But yes, so this terminal is now for the exclusive use of Curie for both research and personal purposes. Please respect her privacy and use other terminals for your own work. Thank you, Dr. Collins. So he gave Curie her own terminal here. So research, the memories failed. Personal. So personal work and property of Curie. Do not read. Yes, this means even you, Dr. Collins, so we're not going to read. Initialising greetings laboratory. I have been ordered by Dr. Collins to add an entry to this terminal. Dr. Collins was most insistent that this is my terminal. I explained several times that robots cannot own property as per Robco policy, but his orders were most clear and insistent. I will comply with Dr. Collins' wishes and maintain a log when ordered to. So yeah, apparently it's Robco policy that robots can't own property. So interesting. Colleagues. I've completed my analysis and integration of the data to make me a capable research assistant. I have been commanded to provide an assessment of my colleagues. Dr. Flint is objectively brilliant, although Dr. Collins repeatedly calls him brusque. But I find Dr. Flint's commands and speech patterns easier to parse. His observations are always very astute, and I'm learning much about working with cell cultures from him. So cell cultures would have been what they used for the phase 1 trials, the in vitro trials. And again, that's a whole rabbit hole that I could go into. But yeah, so cell cultures is what they've been working with at first. And Monsieur Burrow, who's not a doctor, presumably never got to finish his PhD before the bombs. It's perfectly acceptable to work with. He performs menial tasks which my programming is perfectly suited for, such as carrying heavy lab equipment. This is strange because my capabilities for such a task are far beyond those of a human male. I am told by Dr. Collins that this is a sign of respect that Monsieur Burrow is making. This does not compute. There we go. Yeah, it's interesting that, Curie's been, and then, yeah, so there's some entries that are corrupted. Distress. Something unusually agitated state. He would not leave his quarters after his morning meal. Dr. Collins assures me that this state is temporary and that Monsieur Burrow is merely overwhelmed with the something. So, kind of indication, although the entry's corrupt, that Burrow was not doing too well. Then another error, and then eulogy. Dr. Burrow is deceased. Post-mortem indicates he expired from a severe cardiac arrest brought on by advanced age. He died at 5:01 a.m. shortly after waking. In accordance with the doctor's pre-existing orders, the body was cremated and placed in the specified urn alongside Doctors Collins and Flint. Dr. Burrow was of great assistance in continuing the work left to us by the others. My last order was to continue working on our projects alone so that our deaths would not be in vain. My processors are fully committed to furthering the study of pathogens and viruses for the betterment of mankind. To honour this last request, message ends. So now we know that the locker that contained the urn was Dr. Burrow, who somehow acquired the doctor title. In between these entries, presumably, would assume that he is younger than Collins and Flint, so they died first and were buried in the lockers outside, and then Dr. Burrow lived longer because he was younger, but did eventually die from old age, and was cremated per his wishes, and Curie was left to carry on the work. Essentially, so yeah, kind of a shame for these guys, and we could see from the logs of the original overseer that she did feel some degree of guilt for cutting these guys off essentially and leaving them to die without any other options. So yeah, boot up. We're hamstrung with only 3 researchers. Decided to make a few modifications to this Mr. Handy robot. Should be really useful for speeding up some of our lab work. I've been pretty anxious since admittance day, as if the world ending wasn't enough. I'm very concerned about all of its motives. Dusting off some of my old robotics shops has been just the distraction I've needed. So, yeah, this is Dr. Collins, obviously. Like, yeah, we've really screwed the fact that there's only 3 of us here, so he's made changes to Curie and got the robot up and running. Personality profile. Decided to write a suite of custom personality settings for the robot. She's a little bit of Liza. I really hope she got into her vault down in DC. And a little bit my grad school fling from Versailles back in 46. I'm loading her databanks with every great body of work I have access to here. Kant, Einstein, Born, Darwin, Curie, Faraday, Turing, Braun. So worth highlighting. Obviously, these are well-known scientists from our time: Albert Einstein, Charles Darwin, Marie Curie, Alan Turing, and then Braun. So Stanislaus Braun gets lumped in with these guys in this universe, which is an interesting little aside. And we will meet Bron when we cover Vault 112. She'll have so much to learn. It's already made her feel so much more like a peer in the lab as opposed to an appliance. I'm calling her Curie. I know. I was never a subtle man, so it's obviously based on the name of the full name of the robot and the fact that it looks like Curie, and obviously named after Marie Curie as well. So yeah, it's a wee bit on the nose, but there you are. Therapeutic. Curie's been doing great. Flint's finally stopped treating me like a crazy person for insisting we address her as a human, and I swear Burrow is deferential to her in a way that reminds me of seeing him around Rebecca back during the drills. It's actually endearing to see. Most importantly, and perhaps more surprisingly, she's bringing a sense of normalcy to the lab, keeping us all a bit more grounded. Anything to keep our minds off the situation we're in is all too welcome. I've tuned her personality matrix a lot, but it's beginning to feel wrong to manipulate her. I'm going to leave her programming alone for now and just see how she evolves as she keeps learning more. Yeah, so he's now really starting to see Curie as a person, to the point where he's like, I don't want to mess with her personality and change her programming. I'm just going to let her kind of learn and evolve the way she's going to go. Then ongoing directive. Haven't touched this terminal in years, not since I gave it to Curie as her own. Seeing her reaction to having something of her own was transformational. It just seemed wrong to violate that, so it's truly been for her eyes only ever since. This final entry is an exception, and I suppose it's been written out of habit as a man used to a lifetime of recording his experiments. We lost Flint today, and Burrow has to spend more time helping me around the lab than actually performing research these days. So, if only to report my findings, Curie has been a remarkable success. She transcended my expectations of robotic programming. Her personality feels as genuine as my own. Her interest in scientific research is insatiable. And seeing her struggle with concepts like mortality has been completely moving. Truly, she is my greatest work. I only hope that one day she can see more of the world. If only I could be there to witness her reaction to the blue skies and butterflies she's only heard me sing about. So, yeah, basically, Dr. Flint died and he is aging and knows that he's probably not got long left, but he wants Curie to get out and experience the world, which is something that Curie herself does express a real desire to do as well. And that, she started out as an AI, but her personality evolved. And it does get to the point where when you get up to a good relationship with Curie, she will ask you to help her, and you can put her into a synth, so that she's a person rather than a robot. Kind of. I mean, it depends where you stand on the whole are synths really people debate. But yeah, it's kind of a... I mean, it's always the same. Pretty much every vault that we've looked at so far, you've got this kind of situation where Vault Tech are really the bad guys, and people are left to kind of deal with the consequences. So, it's because the thing is that the science population could have survived if it hadn't just been 3 men that had made it into the science side of this vault. If there had been a woman, then there would have been the possibility for the scientists to reproduce and, continue for the generations. But because it was only 3 men plus a robot, there was no way. So these men were basically stuck in here until they died of natural causes and age. But the fact that, Curie, her personality is, she's a robot, but she's got to that point where she's dealt with mortality and she's seen, grief and essentially experienced it. And the fact that she's treated these men with enough respect, that she's buried them all together, there's flowers. Yeah, it's really, really interesting, and really quite sad in a way as well. I mean, when it comes to experimenting on living things, when you're doing science, ethics is important, and doing minimal harm, even when it's animals. It's, sometimes it can be quite difficult to convince people that animals of all shapes and sizes do suffer and feel pain. Like, people for a long time didn't believe that reptiles could feel pain, that fish couldn't feel pain. Even, rabbits and small furries like rats and things not really being able to feel pain. And the thing about it is that literally anything with a nervous system can feel pain and therefore can suffer. Even fish, even insects and spiders and all kinds of things. If there's any kind of a nervous system, then there's a possibility for pain to be experienced. There's even evidence that plants respond with distress. That smell that everybody likes of freshly cut grass is apparently all the grass blades screaming because they've been, they've been decapitated. That's kind of the way it all works, and it's something that I think people don't always appreciate. But even when you do get to a point in a clinical trial or in a study where you're going to be using human test subjects and you're going to be experimenting on people, those people should be able to consent to that, because they have to be aware of the potential benefits and the potential risks of participating in that research. And they have to consent to all of that, just the same as any medical procedure. If you were going to have surgery, or you were going to go and have chemotherapy or something, then you have to be made aware of what's going to happen, what the expected outcome is, and what the potential risks are, because any general anaesthetic carries a risk of death. Even in the most fit, healthy person or the most fit and healthy animal, there's a risk of death. It's just part of it. It's something that can happen, and it's rare, unless there's complicating factors. It's rare for that to happen, but it's not impossible. So when you have to, go under general anaesthetic, you have to accept that risk. And then you have to consent to that part of the proceedings as well as the procedure. You have to consent kind of in advance for performing CPR. So if something was to happen and you did crash under anaesthetic, then you would have to give permission for them to attempt to resuscitate you. Or, if you were somebody that had cancer and you were already terminal and things, then you might sign a form for a DNR, so do not resuscitate, which means that if you do have a cardiac arrest or something, that they're not going to do any life-saving measures and they're going to just let you go, that kind of thing. But the point of it all, when it comes to medicine especially, is that it's about consent and it's about understanding. And as a vet, obviously I can't really explain things I couldn't explain these things to my patients, and they wouldn't necessarily understand. So it fell to their owners to then, accept these things on their pet's behalf, and to understand that there was a risk to something happening, there was a risk of things going wrong. And so they would have to sign a consent form to acknowledge that. But the responsibility on us as clinicians, so the vets and the vet nursing staff, is to make sure that clients are aware of all the potential risks and what could happen, so that they had informed consent and they could fully agree or not, as the case may be. And if they decided not to allow care, then it was kind of them taking responsibility for that. Whereas here, again, Vault-Tec, they're not really big on ethics or consent or anything like that. But and that was what the original overseer took issue with, was the fact that this population of people were supposed to be maintained as a breeding populations, and used as test subjects without their knowledge, without their consent, and potentially in a way that some people could become very, very sick and could die.
Nice pit boy. If it ever scraps out,
And it was, again, Vault-Tec don't really care about that stuff, but that's kind of the point, is to highlight that not all science is ethical, but science can be ethical. And, you know, then you find out that what they were really wanting to do, it wasn't really about developing disease cures. It was more about developing a population of people that were inherently immune to a lot of infectious diseases and resistant to a lot of infectious diseases, which again on the surface sounds like a good thing, but you know, it was a really questionable way to go about it. That would be, you know, that's kind of the thing that I think is really an issue. So you can't really blame Dr. Olivet for what she did. You can't really blame Flint and Burrow and the other guy, the scientist, for, you know, being upset about the fact that they were basically locked away in a secret part of this vault and left to die because only one person knew that they even existed until Bobby DeLuca finds a secret place to stash all these chems, and then a kid follows him in there and ends up almost dying unless you as a sole survivor choose to come in and save his life, which you can do. You know, you can do that, or you can refuse to do so. And if you do, then obviously Vault 81 aren't particularly happy about you letting that child die. But if you do, then they're quite happy, and I say you heard them in various parts talking about the whole situation and stuff. So yeah, interesting. I'll go stand somewhere where people might stop speaking to me non-stop. There we go. Oh yeah, there's an interesting little note. There's a rail sign there that says ally, so presumably somebody in here's involved with the railroad to some degree. So that's interesting. But yeah, that was Vault 81. So very interesting story, because you first go there and it's just like, oh yeah, this is just a control vault, everything's working like people thought it would, you know, it's just functioning and people have been living there for generations and all is well. And then the whole drama happens with Austin, and you discover the true secret that, you know, these people, that the vault dwellers had no idea about, because presumably the first overseer Olivet didn't tell anybody anything, and she cut off the communication. So the scientists had no way of communicating with the new overseer or with anybody else in the vault, and they were just left to their own devices. So, you know, quite a sad outcome from that point of view, but it has meant that there is a population of people who are still working away in this vault and living in this vault quite happy, and it was all because the original overseer sabotaged the experiment, because ethically she clearly had an issue with it, and I say she was Dr. Olivet, so presumably she was also some kind of scientist. You know, that was something that happened quite a lot with the overseers for various vaults, and the fact that they lumped Stanislaus Braun in with the likes of Einstein and Alan Turing. So Braun's obviously was considered a, you know, very high profile scientist of his time. But coming to this vault can unfortunately leave you with a permanent disease unless you decide to, you know, because that's kind of your choice there. Unless you get really, really lucky and you manage to avoid getting this mole rat disease, then at the end of the quest you've either got to let a child die or live with 10 less hit points for the rest of your time in the game. I mean, honestly, it's, you know, they almost make that decision too easy, because minus 10 max HP is nothing. You know, it's really not going to have much of an impact on you in terms of the gameplay or anything. So it does make that choice quite easy, I think, really. But then obviously if you want to roleplay as a really, really evil person, then you've got the option to do that and just be selfish. But the fact that having this disease doesn't really do much damage to you probably, you know, might have been interesting if it was more impactful having the mole rat disease. That might make that choice a bit more difficult to make, really. I think, you know, because you would have, you know, sort of real consequences for, you know, doing the right thing, because then it's not quite so cut and dry. Whereas having this max HP minus 10, it really doesn't matter to you in terms of gameplay, and certainly once you get up to, you know, my max HP is 450 because I'm level 72. I have these ridiculous weapons that can take out most things. You know, my Sentinel's plasma caster, that thing's a beast. You know, I've got so many good strong weapons, and you know, so it doesn't really matter. But an interesting one, Vault 81. It's certainly one that you know, I really enjoyed the first time I went through it, because I made a point of avoiding any spoilers when Fallout 4 first came out, so I discovered it all quite organically, and it was great. And you know, really does highlight the ethics of making medicines, and studying disease, and studying the effects of disease, and how to treat disease, because I say it's something that it's a very, very complicated matter, and it's something that is kind of topical given the world that we live in and what's happened over the last 4 years. You know, we need to be aware of the ethics, I think, of dealing with these things, and that's something that Vault-Tec clearly, they don't care. We know they don't care. If they cared, then this series wouldn't exist on YouTube, because there would be nothing crazy to talk about if Vault-Tec were the good guys. So that was Vault 81. Hopefully you find that all very interesting. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.